Hi, I am Zachary Divelbiss. I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Phoenix, Arizona at Future First Criminal Law. The purpose of this video is we're going to find out if the police take evidence from your house, whether the police can use that evidence against you. So, if you want to contact us, hire us to represent you because this sounds like an issue that you're having, please find us online, go to our website, give us a call. That way we can have a consultation with you. If you find this video useful, please like, subscribe, so on and so forth. Continuing on, this is the third segment of our three-part segment involving home searches. We're going to cover, if we haven't already, our warrants, whether they're valid, what you have rights to at the home. First, I want to get into the brief introduction as we have before. This says that we have the greatest amount of protection from unreasonable searches and seizures in our homes. This is because we have the greatest expectation of privacy in our homes. The Fourth Amendment protects your person, your home, your belongings from unreasonable searches and seizures by requiring law enforcement officers to obtain warrants that are based on probable cause and specifically describe the places to be searched and the items to be seized. If a law enforcement officer obtains evidence illegally in violation of the Fourth Amendment, the exclusionary rule will prevent that evidence from being used against you, a defendant, in court unless the circumstances surrounding the search and seizure fall within many of the exceptions that we have to the warrant requirement and the exclusionary rule. There are some slides going forward, different flowcharts that we've created. They are not all encompassing. They don't cover every single situation. And what we're going to get to here, the first one that we already did is how do you know if a legal warrant is valid under the Fourth Amendment? Then previously we also covered what happens when a police officer is at your house. Are they allowed to come in or are they not? And now what we're going to talk about is whether the evidence found in your home, whether it can be used against you or not. Big question here. Just because the police find it doesn't always mean that they can use it against you. So, we're not going to go back over the previous 2 pages that we went over there before. Please watch our other videos for that. Here, did the officer lawfully enter your home on the basis of the valid warrant or pursuant to an exception of the warrant requirement before? These are the 2 parts that we discussed before. So, if the officer had a valid warrant, signed by a judge, the whole 9 that we went over before, or if there was no warrant but there was a valid exception to why they didn't have a warrant, then yes, the evidence will be allowed against you. Admissible means allowed. So if your case falls into that category, then yes, the evidence will be allowed. Once again, this is not all encompassing. There are many different rules, very fine details, but in general, it will be allowed. Okay, if the police did not have your warrant, or if they did not have the reasons to not have a warrant, then no. Your evidence that they found at your house, I know this sounds crazy because they found it. They truly found the drugs, the weapons, whatever it was. There very well may be a reason why it's not allowed there. Not allowed to come into trial against you. So if they didn't have that warrant, if they didn't have the exceptions, then the evidence is most likely inadmissible, meaning not allowed. That would be great, fantastic for you in your case, what we work for with every single one of our clients. However, there are some more exceptions to this. These exceptions I'm going to go through, once again, they go 10 feet deep, and we're going to go like 6 inches deep on these. So, if something here happens to you in one of your cases, definitely hire us, at least have a consultation, that way we can help you out. So here's the first exception, meaning even if the police didn't follow any of the rules they were supposed to, this evidence may still be used against you. And the number one reason that I have listed here is plain view. This is the plain view exception. This pretty much means, the police could have seen it from the outside, practically burst into your house, the whole 9, and found it. And if they claim that they found it not based on because they barged into your house, all this other reasons, but just because it was in plain view, then great. That's a bummer for you, great for the police. That means this is an exception, which means the evidence they find will be allowed. So here's your lesson. Definitely don't keep anything that's illegal in plain view. You want it hidden. For Arizona, this is one of the things that most common these days with marijuana becoming legal is going to be one of our hot topics. Is sure, the police didn't need to enter your house, but was something still in plain view? So you're allowed to grow marijuana on your own. Ton of different rules and exceptions with that. One of them is that it's supposed to be an enclosed area, essentially so that it's not in plain view. Because this whole purpose here is if a normal citizen could go and see anything, then why should the police not be allowed to either? So that's the plain view rule. Continuing next, here's another exception. Did the evidence they found, was it found at an abandoned property? Okay, the abandoned property is the key word here. This isn't sometimes what most people classically think of. Abandoned property is this. If it's really just outside the curtilage of your house, off on the side of the street, in an alleyway, if it's in a trash can, pulled out to the street, it is abandoned property, meaning the police don't need a warrant, they don't need any exception, they can just go and get that. If that is the case, then yes, that evidence will be used against you. This is very common in a lot of our drug cases where weapons, paraphernalia, all that will get thrown away. They roll it out to the street to get picked up the next morning, and guess who shows up before the trash man? The police. Police are allowed to sit there, dig through your trash, find any evidence against you. Continuing on, was it found in open field? This open field exception is not talking about farms. This is talking sometimes about, well, although farms could fall into this category, but it's about the curtilage. It's about things that are away from your house, away from the true property. And by property, I mean the homestead. Because sure, you might have an acre, 2 acres, 100 acres worth of land. Well, kind of technically not all of that land is protected. As you recall by my previous message at the very beginning, was the reason why you have all the protections of the Fourth Amendment and of unreasonable search and seizure is to protect your privacy within the home, not outside the home. So any of this open field, planes can fly by and see you're growing, something that you shouldn't be, that counts as an exception, meaning the police are allowed to use that against you. Continuing on, this one probably should be listed, if not first, second in the order of this with how important and how common this comes up. This one comes up almost every single time in one of our cases. This is the catch-all where you might feel that the criminal justice system is really, really, really in the favor of the police. This exception right here basically says when the officer was acting in good faith, meaning acting under the objective belief that he or she was doing something constitutional, doing something valid, and they find evidence, then yes, that evidence will be allowed to be used against you. Let me repeat this one in kind of a different way. If the police have a veil of ignorance on, they got their sunglasses on, they think everything they're doing is right by the letter of the law, they've been trained to do this, and then, oh no, turns out what they did was illegal, unconstitutional the way they searched. But that police officer believed 100% that what he or she was doing was valid. They thought this was the right thing, and they thought they were following the law. Well, there's technically a rule here that says, well, police officer, we'll give you a pat on the back, and we'll say, next time you'll learn your lesson, and sorry, defendant, you now can get punished. You now can have that evidence used against you, which you as a defendant don't want. Crazy rule. It's a big catch-all that the prosecutors use against us every single day, where they say, hey, this police officer, he didn't know better. He thought he was doing the right thing. That's where you got to have a good defense attorney to try and find anything we can to show that that officer actually knew better. Very hard thing for us to do, especially when the prosecutors can just really say anything and everything, and the police can say anything they want. So very tough standard, but this one is so important for everyone who's dealing with something along these lines. Continuing on, so that way this all fits in one page. Now, here's an exception. When the item was found during a protective sweep at the time of a legal arrest, and the protective sweep was based on reasonable suspicion of danger that was present to those at the time of arrest. Okay, complicated sentence here. Basically what this means, SWAT comes in, they're looking for someone, they had valid reason to arrest them, they arrest them, they do a clean sweep of the rest of the house, they find stuff, valid. Even if whatever reason it should not have been, it's valid at this point. These protective sweeps are designed to protect the police officers in order to go and search other places that were not, let's say, in a search warrant or even without a search warrant. And the police basically are not allowed to turn a blind eye if they happen to see something that they shouldn't have, that may have been drugs or evidence or something else that maybe wasn't related to your person, to yourself. The police aren't allowed to ignore it. So they created this exception, say, hey, if they're just searching in general, they can find things. That can be used against you. Next, was the item found during a frisk at the time of a legal arrest when the frisk was based on reasonable suspicion of danger to those present at the arrest? Okay, a frisk is simply an officer pat down. An officer is allowed to pat down people that they arrest and kind of the surrounding areas. Very vague. I know I'm not going to get much deeper into the sake of it for this video, but this kind of happens a lot because the police will say, even after they arrest you, that they believe that you have access to other areas around you, and for their safety, they need to check those areas too. This is a valid reason. It's a valid exception, one that we fight all the time, every day. Continuing on, was your home the scene of a crime observed by the officer? This one is the classic. It happens. Scene of a crime. The police are allowed to find anything they want against whoever might have owned it, bring those charges, use that evidence against you. This one sometimes will be unfair with given some of the examples that I won't get into, but it is a valid reason. Then lastly, was the situation an emergency or did an exigent circumstance exist? I covered this previously in one of our other videos, but it's so important here to know that if that's the way the evidence was found, was due to an emergency or exigent situation, then yes, that evidence will be allowed to be used against you. So, in conclusion here, if no exception applies that we've talked about here, and the evidence was then the evidence was unlawfully obtained, which means the exclusionary rule will kick in and the evidence will not be allowed at court in a trial against you. Okay, this is very complicated. This third video is really meant more for lawyers, for them to understand. It's something that we go to law school for, and even then there's still a ton of gray area. So if you're a layperson, you're dealing with this right now and you don't have a lawyer, please contact us. That way you can get a lawyer. Do not try and solve or understand any of this yourself. All of this information, while seemingly, not totally complex, is very difficult. There's a lot of different rules that are not included in these lists. A lot of different legality things. A lot of different processes in order for it to actually happen the way you want it to in court. So, in summary, if there's evidence that's found, here's how and when it can be used against you at your trial. Did the officers lawfully have a warrant, or was there an exception to them not having a warrant? Then yes, the evidence is going to be used against you. If they didn't, then in general, no. That evidence should not be used against you unless the second tier of exceptions comes into play. Was your item in plain view? If yes, it's going to be used against you. Was it abandoned property? Then yes, it is going to be used against you. Was it found in open field? If so, it's going to be used against you. Was the officer acting in good faith that what they thought they were doing was valid? If so, the evidence is going to be used against you. Was it due to a protective sweep at the time of the arrest that the police found the evidence? If so, that evidence will be used against you. If it was found due to a frisk at the time of the legal arrest, then yes, that evidence will be used against you. And was your home the scene of the crime and they found evidence, then yes, it will be used against you. And finally, was it due to an emergency situation or an exigent circumstance that the police found the evidence, then yes, it will be used against you. Ton of information here in these 3 videos. Please let us know if you have any questions about this. Please let us know if you need help with a criminal case on your own. The sooner you contact us, the better, because we can't make up time in a criminal case. We can only pick up where you left off. So, once again, if you found this video helpful, please like, share, subscribe, send it to your friends. We love the attention here. We want to get more good content out to you. Thank you very much. I'm Zach Divelbiss with Future First. I hope you found this information valuable, and I look forward to speaking with you if you need our help.